हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
श्वेता माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्णा, जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
प्रिया मोहिनी माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
दंडवत प्रणाम सुंदरी देवी। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्णा, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
अतुल कृष्ण प्रभु, दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
समीर प्रभु, दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
दंडवत प्रणाम। अश्विनी माता जी, हरे कृष्ण। Okay, so we can begin now. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaite Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Okay, so we'll be reviewing the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita today. The link between chapter 4 and chapter 5. In chapter 4, Krishna does speak of action in action, action in inaction, and inaction in action. This we discussed last week. When we say action in inaction, means even by not doing anything, there will be a reaction because of neglecting one's duty. And when Krishna says inaction means even by fighting or by doing one's duty, there will be no reaction because one is working for the sake of Krishna. So Krishna does speak about this concept. Then Krishna also says one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his action, is not bound by the reaction of work. In other words, Krishna does speak about renouncing the fruits. Work needs to be done, but without attachment to the fruits. Independent of how it feels, what the results will be, service must be performed. Duty must be done, independent of if the results are favorable or unfavorable. If one does as a matter of one's duty, one will not be bound by any reaction. Then at the end of the 4th chapter, Krishna says, "O Bharata, stand and fight." But Arjuna is still not clear about renunciation. So Arjuna, work and renunciation appears to be incompatible. So at one place, Krishna says, Arjuna, "O Bharata, stand up and fight." And then he says, renounce the fruit of the action, or action and inaction, which Arjuna after this explanation, still there is a lack of clarity. And Arjuna is still feeling that Krishna is propagating renunciation and Krishna is also propagating fighting. So what does Krishna want me to do? So that's where this chapter begins. And that's why Karma Yoga comes back, 5th chapter. Okay. Understanding what Arjuna lacks, work in devotional service is non-reactive and therefore the same as inaction. It's very clear what Krishna wants him to do is work and surrender on to Krishna, and then the reaction will not be there, or any work done in devotional service will not have a reaction. This understanding is still lacking apparently, and that's where this chapter begins. In this chapter, Krishna will explain the process of achieving liberation through Karma Yoga in greater depth than chapter 3. Chapter 3 was Karma Yoga. Chapter 5 is also Karma Yoga part 2, Karma Yoga at a deeper level. and how through Nishkama Karma Yoga one can attain liberation. Generally, this is what is going to be discussed. Okay, breakdown of chapter 5. First, Nishkama Karma Yoga. This chapter again is like, especially first 6 chapters are more complex. Then Bhakti Yoga chapters are relatively easier. We will see if we can cover 2 chapters in Bhakti Yoga section in 1 week. We will see. So first, Nishkam Karma Yoga. Krishna explains how it is easier than renouncing work. Then how to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga. Then the platform of knowledge, knowing the 3 doers. These are some complex verses there. Then the characteristics of a liberated soul. Liberation through Ashtanga Yoga, a preview to 6th chapter, and finally peace on the platform of liberation. Only 29 verses. But they have, but when Krishna speaks something, it has a lot of depth in it. Nishkam Karma Yoga. This is first section, easier than renouncing work. Karma Yoga is same as sannyas, but better. Text 1 to 3. Text 4 to 6. Krishna explains why Karma Yoga is better. So 6 verses in this section. Begins with Arjuna asking Krishna, I am still confused. What is better? Do you want me to work in devotion or do you want me to renounce? And Krishna answers by saying, both are good for liberation. Of the 2, the first is better. Now here renunciation will have also few meanings that we will discuss. So simple words, should I renounce work? Should I work in devotion? Both are good for liberation, but of the 2, work in devotion is higher. A true sannyasi, Krishna explains in the 3rd verse, who neither hates nor desires fruits. He is truly renounced. Neither hates nor desires fruits. Neutral, just work for a matter of duty. Completely renounced from the result, good or bad. He is a true sannyasi. Why Karma Yoga better? Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy or attain the supreme. Even if one merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy or attain the supreme. I mean, if a person maybe go to the forest and renounce, not doing anything, not doing any work, given up all duties, but if he cannot perform devotional service, if he is not performing devotional service, then his heart will not be purified. I mean, just hypothetically, any one of us go and renounce without taking up Krishna consciousness, we will not find happiness. Happiness is not in the act of renunciation. Happiness is in the act of devotional service. Now, the purpose of act of renunciation is also to perform devotional service. Whether one is working, covering one duties, or one is renouncing material duties, either ways, the act of happiness and the act of purification lies in executing devotional service. And without devotional service, merely renouncing, one will not be happy, one will not be purified, one will not attain Krishna. It's all not fruitful. The results will not be obtained. So ultimately, what's most important is working in Krishna consciousness. More discussion. This verse, many times devotees have difficulty understanding this verse. One who knows that the position reached by the means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. So that's why I said the word renunciation has multiple meanings. 3 meanings are described here. So when Arjuna begins with first, just quick summary, Arjuna asks, should I work in devotion? Should I renounce? So one meaning is, should I renounce the work? Should I work in devotional service? Straight answer is work in devotional service. Now, renunciation can also also refers to the path of Sankhya Yoga, or the Gyanis, or the impersonalist. That is also renunciation, because they give up their duties, go to the forest, mentally speculate the scriptures, and ultimately their goal is Brahman. So, from that perspective, renunciation can mean that also. Okay, both aims towards liberation. Different kinds of liberation means whether one is working in devotion, the goal will be attaining Krishna, going back to Golok Vrindavan. Another is Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga is analytical study, or Jnani's path. They also will attain liberation, but Brahman realization. Brahman realization, Bhagwan realization are different kind of liberation. But from the perspective of liberation, both attains liberation. Then Sankhya, Prabhupada says how they both are together. Basically, Krishna is telling an ignorant person, he distinguishes between work and devotion and renunciation. They are the same. So here is the explanation how they are the same. So Sankhya tries to find the root, which is Vishnu, and Karma Yoga waters the root, or Bhakti Yoga directly water, keeping Krishna in the center. Sankhya Yoga is we are analyzing and we are trying to find the goal of Sankhya, which is Brahman, and then coming from Paramatma, and then rendering service to Paramatma, which is Bhagwan. So Prabhupada says eventually Sankhya will also lead to Bhakti, and also will lead us to spiritual kingdom. And that's why they're non-different. One is indirect path, one is direct path. Another way to understand is both give different kind of liberation, but liberation is common in both. Another explanation I recently heard from Shivram Maharaj. He mentions that hearing about Krishna or understanding Krishna Tattva is also like one who distinguishes between bhakti and tattva is not in knowledge. Or in other words, by like one is like I just perform devotional service, one is analytically analyzing Srimad Bhagavatam, analytically analyzing like the process of creation, the higher and lower planets, the punishments that is given, the multidimensional structure, or analytically understanding the stages in devotional service, the process of devotional service. This is also analytical study. So one who distinguishes between bhakti and analytical study of bhakti literatures, and who cannot see that the goal of both the same, is also in ignorance. So there are three ways to understand how, again, I'm repeating, what it means when Krishna says, one who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also, one who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. Or one who sees analytical study and bhakti yoga, same. Analytical study, nishkam karma yoga, on the same level. They see things as they are. And three explanations, they both will give liberation, maybe different kinds of liberation. One leads to another, because Gyanis leads to Paramatma and Bhagwan. When you realize Paramatma, you enter service to Paramatma, you worship Bhagwan. So one leads to another, or it's like a yoga ladder. From Brahman comes, from Gyani comes Ashtangi, from there comes Bhakti. So that's how takes longer time, but one leads to another, or the goal is the same. Other analytical study of Bhakti Shastra and Bhakti to Krishna are also on the same level. All right, so that was the end of the first section, where Arjuna asked, should I work or should I renounce? Both are good for liberation. The person who's both are good for liberation, work in devotion is better, But a person who distinguishes between them is in ignorance. So we discuss how a person who distinguishes between karma yoga and renunciation, how he's in ignorance. We spend some time there. Now moving on to how to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga in terms of realization, in terms of action, in terms of results. How to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga. Sees all living entities as spirit, soul, part and parcel of the Supreme, dear to all. Knows material. This is an important discussion to elaborate on Nishkam Karma Yoga from this chapter. Knows material activities as interaction of senses with the sense objects. No soul is inactive materially, he is aloof. In other words, please understand that some devotees did tell me we are going very fast, but please understand that these are the review sessions. So those who have read 5th chapter there, Krishna says, the soul or one may be engaged in speaking, in evacuating, in walking, in sitting, in talking, and various things. But he knows that one does nothing at all, because these are simply the activities of the body, and the soul is aloof from everything, because only the body and the senses are interacting with the world. Soul is aloof. So this is a realized karma yogi or a devotee, a realized devotee. He realizes everything is the body and the senses interacting with the environment. The soul does nothing at all. And another realization that a realized soul has, he sees Krishna in the heart of all living entity. Sees all living entities as spirit, soul, and all living entities as Krishna in the heart of all living entity, and all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. And however he is interacting, he is aloof, only the body and senses. So these are the realization of a Nishkam Karma Yogi. Then Nishkam Karma Yogi, mind and senses completely controlled, because they don't have material desires. They or they coincide with pure devotees also. Okay. Acts without attachment, no desire for results. They do the work for the sake of doing, needs to be done. So do it, no matter what the results will be. Do it. Acts without attachment, no desire to results. Acts with body, mind, intelligence, senses only for purification. They use their body intelligently in a way whatever is conducive for my spiritual life. They use their mind whatever is conducive for their spiritual advancement. They use their intelligence. Intelligence means discrimination. Whatever they use intelligence, whatever is conducive for Krishna consciousness. They use their senses, whatever is only for the purpose of purification. Because ultimately, all of us have only one goal, and that is we all want to go back to Godhead. And the only thing that matters is my activities, the way I'm engaging my time. Is it pleasing to Krishna? Am I making progress? And that's the utmost thing for a Nishkam Karma Yogi. His time, his body, his mind, his intelligence, his senses should be used only for the purpose of purification. Like a realized Nishkam Karma Yogi. Then not incur sin, like lotus leaf, all that grows into the water is untouched by water. Likewise, Nishkam Karma Yogi, living in the material world, dealing in material activities, but is untouched by the action and reaction of material activities, because he's keeping Krishna in the center. So he does not incur any sin, because he's not doing it out of desire, but who is doing only for pleasure of Krishna. Never entangled, because work is based on Krishna's desire. So he is not doing anything because what he wants, but he's doing it based on Krishna's desire. It's like pure devotees actually, or Guru's desire. Like for Prabhupada, it was like Saraswati Thakur's order. And every action of Prabhupada was based on Saraswati Thakur's order. Whether it is printing books, engaging devotees, preaching, traveling in the Western world, writing, everything was ordered on Guru Maharaj. So this is like perfect Nishkam Karma Yogi coincides with Bhakti Yogi. The work is based on Krishna's desire, so there is no entanglement there. It is not for any personal motive, purely higher orders. Attains unadulterated peace because no anxiety for fruits. Like one thing I remember Prabhupada mentions in the Jaladuta, Krishna, you must have some purpose that you have brought me here. Now you can make me a success or failure. It is up to you, but you may have some purpose. Otherwise, why will you bring me here? So Prabhupada says whether you make me a failure or success, it's up to you. That's a sign that Prabhupada is coming on the order of his Guru Maharaj and dependence on Krishna. No anxiety for fruits. That's why he attained unadulterated peace. Okay, so how to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga? What are the realizations? He is aloof, senses are acting, sees all living entity part and parcel of Krishna. In terms of action, act without any personal motive, act or uses the body, mind, intelligence, senses only for purification, mind and senses completely controlled. Results: lotus leaf untouched by water, does not incur any sin, never entangled because he's doing it for Krishna's sake, or Arjuna fighting for Krishna's sake, no results, and attain peace because not attached to fruits. Krishna consciousness, attachment to Krishna, bodily consciousness, attachment to results. Okay, so section 3, which is platform of knowledge, knowing the three doers. Verse number 13 established the role of Jivatma, number 14 the role of modes, and number 15 the role of the Lord or Krishna. Role of Jivatma is described as one in knowledge, sees the body, not the self as the performer. Embodied living entity resides happily in the city of 9 gates. So what is the role of the role of Jiva in any action? In any action, there are three doers. There is living entity, there is modes, and there is Krishna or Paramatma. The role of living entity, here it says, sees the body, not the self as the performer. In other words, if the soul does not do anything physical, it is the body that does everything, but the soul is aloof. This relates to the previous Nishkam Karma Yoga realization of a Nishkam Karma Yogi. Walking, acting, evacuating, eating, sleeping, the self does nothing at all. It is the body interacting with the environment. So the Jivatma understand that the body is performing action, but the soul, the self, does nothing at all. In other words, okay, let's continue. Role of modes, one in knowledge perceives therefore that the material nature as the cause of worldly actions. Anything materially happens, only the modes make it happen. I picked up this mobile. Who raised the mobile? Who raised the mobile? The three modes. Three modes not only influence our desire, there are multiple sections of Maya, but Maya makes all the anything that moves in this material world is by the three modes. Okay. One in knowledge perceives therefore the material nature as the cause of worldly action. Analogy: waves of material ocean are simply tossing him in the struggle for existence. let me cover the role of the Lord. One in knowledge sees material nature as being under Lord's control, and thus the Lord as the ultimate performer and the cause of all action. Once again, one in knowledge sees material nature as being under Lord's control, and thus the Lord as the ultimate performer and the cause of all actions. In other words, simple words, the living entity desires, the Lord sanctions, the material nature facilitates. Neither the living entity nor the Lord take or deals with the matter directly. All the matter is under the control of material nature. Anything moving, non-moving, material nature. Bodies moving, non-moving, things moving, so many things are happening. Material nature, everything. But the material nature is working under the direction of Krishna. So Krishna sanctions, material nature moves. In other words, if this mobile has to rise up, then the role of living entity is a desire only. I want to lift this mobile. The role of the Lord is sanction. If my karma allows sanction, I can lift, and material nature lifts the phone. Okay. Any question here? Are devotees able to understand? Yes, no?
Yes,
Prabhuji, one quick question. So our subtle body, like when our senses are desiring, correct? So our intelligence will also, approve that, like, let's raise the mobile, and then things will go further. What you explained, correct? My senses are desiring to lift my mobile, and then mind and intelligence will approve that, and then only it will go to the prakriti material nature, and then Lord will sanction. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Actually, Raupal Maharaj says desire may come from mind, desire may come from senses, desire may come from false ego. Desire for false ego means I want to be the center. Desire from intelligence, desire from mind, I want to enjoy the happiness that I enjoyed in the past. Or desire from senses, I want to eat this now. So desire can come from any form. But the living entity, because he misidentifies with the senses, with the ego, so living entity takes the desire of the externals as itself and desire something. And then, yes, the Lord sanction, material nature executes. Clear?
Desire can comes from intelligence as well, you're saying?
Anywhere desire can come probably. Subtle body, desire can produce desire. And because the soul identifies with the subtle body, the soul thinks this is my desire. And then things again move. Ultimately, the soul has to identify with the mind and senses in order to desire at a lower level. Does it answers?
Yes, Prabhuji. I mean, I don't know. I remember in one of the lecture, like intelligence also senses desire, and then intelligence make a call whether it's right thing or not, and then based on the judgment, then I mean, here I think maybe a different context. I don't know, Prabhuji. I'm a little confused, but well, maybe I'll talk offline.
Well, what you say, Prabhu, is also from Bhagavad Gita, where it says higher than senses is the mind. The mind should control the senses, the intelligence should control the mind, and the intelligence should come from Krishna, Paramatma. But what happens is opposite. The senses tell the mind what to do, mind tells the intelligence what it wants, and material intelligence uses to get those things. And they are coherent. In other words, the desire may come from mind senses, and the soul takes that as its own desire and desires, and nature executes based on sanction by Paramatma. Same thing. Clear?
Yeah, clear. Thank you.
Okay. Harshini Mataji, you have a question?
Yes, Prabhuji. In 5.13, the second point, embodied living entity, is that referring to soul?
Yeah,
Or is it the senses? I mean, the 9 gates referring to senses.
the soul, Mataji. The soul is living in the city of 9 gate, which is 2 nostrils, 2 ears, mouth, anus, genitals, 2 eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anus and genitals. These are 9 holes in the body. The soul is sitting aloof in these 9 holes and is happy when he does not try to control or lord over the material nature, but knows that he is aloof. Only the body interacts and the self only desires. Is it all right?
Yeah, so the significance is like it's not he is using for happiness, own happiness. Just like, what is the significance exactly for that sentence?
Significance of?
Means what is meant by that? What is the relation to that Jivatma concept?
Oh, so Krishna says one who does not try to control the material nature and knows that he does nothing at all, lives happily in the city of 9 gates. In other words, the role of Jivatma is defined by that verse, that he does not cause any work to happen, or he does not perform any work. All the next verse describe all this is done by material nature. And one who knows this lives happily in the city of 9 gate, knowing that everything is based on Krishna and Paramatma Vaitik anxiety. But when one tries to control the material nature, thing doesn't happen, then he thinks because of me, this and this, all the anxiety, attachment to results, and he suffers. Does it answer?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who else has question?
Prabhuji, I have.
Anandani Priya Mataji, yes.
Prabhuji, you already described a little bit, but I want a better understanding on that, Prabhuji. So when we say soul is eternal. Soul doesn't want to enjoy material things, right, Prabhuji? Is it correct?
Soul cannot enjoy, but soul wants to enjoy because soul identifies with the matter.
Okay, so it means when senses are enjoying, so soul is feeling. The feeling and consciousness is in soul only, right, Prabhuji? Senses are like they are material thing. They don't have any consciousness, right?
They are in the, yes, I mean, what Srimad Bhagavatam says, what enjoy, this is very technical chapter actually, but at the same time we have to discuss it, and this Krishna speaking. What enjoys is Ahankar enjoys.
Okay.
Ahankar enjoys means I identify myself as the body, and so body enjoys. My identification with the body is itself Ahankar. It's a subtle matter.
Mm-hmm.
So when I identify myself with the body and the senses and the mind, so anything that gives pleasure to the mind and senses and the body, then I feel the enjoyment. But soul cannot enjoy material happiness naturally. So it is the false identification, the subtle matter who is actually enjoying, and the soul is aloof. And a liberated soul knows that the soul is aloof. It is very easy to speak the subject matter, very difficult to practice. But at the same time, Krishna is describing to Arjuna about the liberated Nishkama Karma Yogi, how he thinks, how he feels. That's why we discussed in the beginning, Bhagavad Gita is very, very high. Every time we read, we many times cannot relate because the platform with which it is spoken is Krishna is speaking and Arjuna is listening, and one is the Swayam Bhagwan and one is Shuddha Bhakta. So the platform is very liberated platform. But is the concept clear analytically?
What a little bit I understood, Prabhuji. So as you mentioned, the elevated soul, they know senses are enjoying, but elevated souls, they know how to be aloof, but not every soul, right? Soul get confused with
Ahankar.
ahankar or materialistic things. So soul get confused because of that. Soul enjoys
Soul
material
enjoys.
thing. Okay,
Soul
Puja.
enjoys at different levels, at the level of mind, at the level of intellect, at the level of ego. Soul enjoys.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Now it's clear.
Thank you. Anything else on the three doers?
Dandavat Pranam.
Pasati.
Prabhuji, regarding devotional service, when we perform devotional service, and if sometime we have some, we can say emotional happiness or whatever, that is touched with the soul, right, Prabhuji? I mean, soul enjoys that, right?
Yeah, any kind of bhakti connection is the happiness of the soul, Prabhuji.
Yeah, because when you were explaining, I was thinking like soul cannot enjoy matter because it's incompatible, because soul is spirit and matter is
Yes.
material. But devotional service is all spiritual, so it becomes compatible with the soul. So whatever devotional service we perform, and if we feel that happiness, that is at the soul level.
Yeah, but that is correct, Prabhuji, but that is very, very difficult to distinguish also, because suppose I do a very nice kirtan, and then I feel like, what a nice kirtan. Now the false ego is enjoying there. Because what a nice kirtan. Or same with, I give a very nice lecture. What a nice lecture. So what laments is the false ego. Or I give a horrible lecture. What laments is also a false ego. That's why pure devotee is free from lamentation and joyful nature. Good performance, bad performance, because they are doing it as a matter of duty. Results, it's okay, whatever. And the reason the pain comes at a material level is because desire to success. So it's like, very, very difficult. But suppose Kirtan is going on and we are suppose remembering in Vrindavan, or we are absorbed in remembering the form of Krishna, qualities of Krishna, pastimes of Krishna, then that is really spiritual happiness, Prabhuji.
And in the intermediate stage, Prabhuji, we are currently in the transition phase, right? We are still, I mean, like you said, sometime we perform nice kirtan and our false ego thinks, so I did a nice kirtan. I mean, we did the kirtan, so definitely there is purification, but the false ego is also there. So in the transition period, these things will be there. But once the transition phase becomes more and more dilute and we reach to the pure devotion, then it becomes completely pure
Yes, Prabhuji.
enjoyment at the soul level.
Yes. And here Krishna is explaining about those who are completely pure. What are their actions, how they act, how they see, how they behave. This is what Krishna is explaining. Krishna explained in previous section.
Nishkam yoga, right? Those are nishkam.
Yeah. Or bhakti yoga, like what is the realization, how their actions are controlled, what are the results, never entangle, never incurs in, always peaceful. So these are like those pure souls.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Any other question?
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, when we see or think Krishna's pastime, so for that, what should we do to see, or think about Krishna's pastime continuously, or sometime also?
You are asking a very small person, very big question, Mataji. I don't have qualification to answer this question. What it takes to continuously think of Krishna's pastime, what it takes to like how Prabhupada defined is two things we can do. One thing Prabhupada says is if Krishna comes naturally, we should be grateful and we should remember him. If it comes naturally, especially in chanting, Prabhupada says try to hear the holy name. And if Krishna's pastimes naturally manifest, Prabhupada said that is very good. That's all he said. Then another thing, what can we do to remember Krishna's pastime? Prabhupada said one thing, every day in the night, I mean, what he said is drink a hot cup of milk and read Krishna book. In other words, hearing about Krishna will help us remembering Krishna more. The natural state of the mind is whatever we hear, it will go in the mind. Just for example, if like previously, if we sing a movie song or hear movie song many times, then while walking, while talking, that song we will keep gungunana. Or while we are, natural like bathing or other things, those songs will come in the mind. So mind naturally remembers what it hears. And that's why today morning we were discussing nectar of devotion. The most important aspect is hearing. Because when we hear, what will come out is what we have heard. It is natural. It's a function of the mind. So Prabhupada gave everybody in ISKCON instruction every day hear about Krishna. Otherwise, why would Prabhupada say every day in the night read Krishna book? Because unless we are not hearing about Krishna, how can we remember Krishna, Mataji? How can we remember Krishna? So how it is explained is somebody may say, I don't have taste in hearing about Krishna. Then today morning you were discussing, Narad Muni says, I heard the Bhakti Vedantas. By hearing Bhakti Vedantas, my attraction to hearing about the attractive quality of Krishna increased. Hearing itself will increase the taste in hearing also. And hearing, reading, they are one and the same thing. The principle is Shravana. So hearing will help us remember. And if it comes naturally, very good. If it is japa, then if it comes naturally, that is very good. Otherwise, focus on the name. Other point of time, making conscious effort to hear, to remember is excellent. But it will naturally happen if we are doing proper Shravana. Did I answer, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? We have few more slides to go. Okay, so this is platform of knowledge, knowing the three doers. Then is God. Then okay. So role of the Lord. We saw the role of the modes, role of the Lord, and role of the living entity. Role of living entity. The soul is not responsible for action or causing action or the result of action. The soul is the self is not responsible. Everything is all action, reaction, cause of action, everything is done by three modes of material nature. Three modes of material nature works under direction of the Lord. So ultimately anything happening is by the sanction of the Lord, whether it is stealing, whether it is theft, whether it is wrong thing, killing, maybe harming a sadhu. Everything, whatever it is as the Lord is sanctioning. The material nature is helpless because working under Lord's direction. The living entity is helpless because he can only desire, and without the sanction of the Lord, nothing will move anyways. So anything good, anything bad, whatever happens, the Lord has to sanction. This is the principle of three doers. The Lord is ultimate sanctioner. And then one may question that if Krishna has to sanction, then why Krishna sanction if some innocent person is getting killed or this and this and this? So is Krishna responsible? Or something happened to me, is Krishna responsible? So is God responsible for all good and bad things? The answer is obviously no. He simply sanctions. The soul initiates by desire, and therefore living entity is responsible. The soul initiates by desire, and therefore living entity is responsible for all good and bad reaction. So is Krishna responsible? Krishna is not responsible. The living entity desires, and the Lord sanctions. If it desires good, he will get a good reaction. If the living entity desires bad, he will get a bad reaction. If living entity thinks positive and good about other living entities, other will think good and positive about it. If living entity supports, he will get the support. If the living entity go against, others will go against. Everything is going to come back to us only. So living entity out of ignorance makes a decision, and that out of knowledge or out of ignorance desire something. Everything is based on our desire. And because we are not pure, the desires are not pure. And impure desires reacts. But Krishna is not responsible for our suffering. All of our suffering is because of our wrong desires, basically. So he simply sanctions. The soul initiates by desire. The beginning happens by the soul. The soul wants something. And the living entity. Now, anything coming back onto us, why Krishna sanctions? Because we initiated something wrong in the past. So it's coming back to us. Krishna himself says he is not partial. Whatever action, reaction will come. He's not saying, oh, he's my devotee, so even if he thinks something bad about others, let me not give a reaction. No. Even if it does something wrong to others, so no. Whether you are practicing for 45 years or 40 lifetimes or 40 million lifetimes, you do something wrong, reaction is going to come to you. You cannot escape. That's why the Lord is not responsible. Living entity initiates by desire, and therefore living entity is responsible for all good and bad reaction. Continuing, Prabhupada says in the purport, desire is a subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. Why it's subtle form of conditioning? Because we have done something in the past and we enjoyed it, so we want to repeat it. And that's why it's a subtle form of conditioning. Condition means I did something, I liked it, now I'm conditioned to doing that again, and I want that now. So I will desire that. And that's one thing we discuss in the matter of third chapter, overcoming lust. Krishna says it's like fuel in the fire. And that lust we discuss is any material desire, not just gross lust, but any material desire. It's like fuel into the fire, we put fuel into the fire and it blazes further. And then we are incremented further. And it's an endless cycle, and further and further and further. So what do we have to do? Brahmaji says, patiently tolerate. Whatever reaction is coming in the form of subtle conditioning, don't act on it, tolerate. And Hidava Gopur, see that whatever is coming is my own karma, not tolerate, and humbly take shelter of Krishna. And then we will cross over it. So desire is a subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. Misuse of desire. Under ignorance, living entity desires to be put, Prabhupada's purport, under ignorance, living entity desires to be put into a certain condition of life. Therefore, his chain of actions and reactions begin. He wants something or she wants something and it starts. Comes back to us. And it's not easy because Ahankar is there, who is like the king, like Mount Everest, king. So mind, intelligence, senses, they all initiate a desire, and the cycle of action reaction begins. It is not easy to become free from karma. It is not easy to, even if we get initiated, our sinful reactions are taken away. The next moment we initiate a desire. So whatever is coming to us, good or bad, we initiate it. Therefore, this chain of action reaction begins. The living entity desires to be put in a certain condition of life. Somebody may say, why am I miserable? We are miserable because we desire to become miserable. Why? How can we desire to become miserable? We desire to become happy, but the source, the way we are trying to find happiness was not right. So we unknowingly, ignorance, we desire to put in a miserable condition. Chain of action reaction begins. That's where we stand. Krishna is not responsible. Under ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for its conditional existence. Why is Krishna doing like this to me? Why is Krishna not giving taste in holy name? Why is Krishna not giving me absorption? in his Naam Rup Guna Leela. Why? No, we cannot blame Krishna because we desire to be put in a situation we are in today, or we are desiring every day. And it is such, Prabhupada says, is a form of conditioning. Conditioning means we ourselves don't know what is right, what is wrong. This is the most scary part. We ourselves don't know. Whatever we do, unless Krishna gives us the intelligence, this is not a right desire, don't think like that, don't act like that. I mean, action anyways is based on material nature. We can only desire. Unless Krishna makes us look at our own desire and give us knowledge to see how our desires are not right, then only our any hope is there. Otherwise, conditioning means we will desire in a particular way helplessly. And it's very dark zone actually. Like my spiritual master says, the false ego is there just to justify and tell you your desire is right, Prabhu. Your desire is right, Mataji. Whatever you are thinking is correct. You are right. And first of all, our desire is made in ignorance, and the false ego on the top jumps and says you are right. And then we just initiate a cycle of action reaction and come back to us. And it's like we are like it is said like a hard knot of material existence. Like jakad gaye hum apni hi duvidha mein jakad gaye. By we have bound ourselves so closely, and it's so difficult to see anything out of it. But one should understand that Krishna is not responsible. It is everything is because we don't know what is right, what is wrong. And that is because of material conditioning. So desire is a subtle form of conditioning. So conditioning, how do I explain conditioning? Conditioning. Conditioning. I need more wealth. I need followers. I need fame. I need women. The moment we come, like Prabhupada says, the moment we come in contact with the object of sense gratification, immediately the desire may come. This is all conditioning. Hridaya Granthi. Prabhuji is mentioning Hridaya Granthi, yeah, right, not in the heart. Okay, so let's continue. Misuse of desire. Supreme Lord as a witness and permitter. Krishna is completely neutral. Whatever goes around comes back to us only. Supreme Lord as a witness and permitter. The desires of the living entity are fulfilled only by the omnipotent Lord. He is omnipotent. So we, like Prabhupada says, very, very beautiful purport. Devotees are recommended to go and read it. Man proposes, God disposes, good or bad. Krishna is not responsible. Although Krishna is the ultimate sanctioning authority, he is not responsible. It is the ignorance of the living entity which makes him put into a certain condition of life, good or bad. Analogy of flower. Lord can understand the desire of the individual soul as one can smell the fragrance of a flower by being near it. You go through, if you're close to a flower, you will smell the flower. Likewise, the super soul is sitting right in the heart of the soul. So whatever we desire, whatever thought comes, Krishna sees it. You don't even have to ask Krishna. You just have to want something. And okay, like I want this person to suffer. This is okay. He will give a reaction and then suffering will come back to you also. I want to prove myself better than him. Okay. You will, I mean, whatever it is, the Lord is sitting within, the Lord is watching every single desire you have in your heart. And you don't have to pray to Krishna. Whatever you desire, the Lord will sanction it and you will get whatever you want. And then we have to be ready for the reaction. And this is a continuous cycle. But the Krishna is not responsible. It is the ignorance of a living entity that it desires in that way. And why he desires in that way is a subtle form of condition. He's conditioned to think and to desire in a particular way only. What is the now? We have to come to solution. First, Krishna describes the problem. First, he describes the three doers. First, he describes beginning with the, it's very technical chapter actually. Beginning with Nishkama Karma Yoga, the characteristics, how does he act, how does he think, how does he take action, what are his realization, Krishna, all these things are described of a true Nishkama Karma Yogi. Then he describes the three doers, the living entity, the material nature, the Paramatma, how Paramatma is the ultimate sanctioning authority, but he is not responsible because it is the misuse of the free will of the living entity. And then we discuss on that. Now, the root cause why a living entity misuses the free will is ignorance. The root cause of our suffering as per scriptures is ignorance. Now, one may say karma, but karma is why karma? Because I desired in a certain way out of ignorance. And when I desired, now the karma is coming back to me and it is bringing suffering to me. So root cause is ignorance, everything. Like Prabhupada says, under ignorance, living entity desires to be put in a certain condition of life. So now how the ignorance will go away? Krishna says in the next verse, these are all very, very connected flow, all these verses. As sun lights up and reveals everything in daytime, similarly, knowledge destroys the nascence and reveals everything. So then we need to get the knowledge. It's not just a theoretical knowledge. We will see what kind of knowledge Krishna is speaking about. And then next section, Krishna speaks about the characteristics of a liberated soul. So that's why they are all going in a flow. Like when sun comes, all the darkness is removed. When knowledge comes, all the ignorance is removed. All the suffering is because of ignorance. Because of ignorance, living entity desires, good or bad, the Lord sanctions. Lord is not responsible, and whatever situation we desire, we are put into the same situation. Now, how do we gain knowledge? Next verse, Krishna explains, complete knowledge is obtained when one mind, intelligence, faith, and shelter are all fixed in the Supreme. Real knowledge comes by Bhakti Yoga. Real knowledge comes by full faith in Krishna, shelter of Krishna, mind and intelligence, fully absorbed in Krishna. Then real knowledge comes. Again, this verse is very high. We are trying to go to knowledge by mixed devotional service. But because our devotional service is mixed, there is a lot of role of the subtle body, mind, intelligence, ego in our thought process, and we are bound up in that loop. And it is very difficult to come out of this loop. The only way is mind, intelligence, shelter, and faith in Krishna. And this is what Krishna also says in the 12th chapter. He says, the best form of devotional service is always think of me with your mind. Bring your mind and intelligence fixed on me. If you cannot do that, then follow the regulative principles. So we are in the second stage, following regulative principles. The goal is mind, intelligence fixed on Krishna. When mind, intelligence, faith, shelter fixed on Krishna, and we realize our true self, our true identity, complete self-realization, subtle body is dissolved. No false ego remains. Mind, intelligence become transparent via medium, completely purified, controlled, harmonious system. Then no such desire remains. And this is the real knowledge of our true identification. A complete self-realization is the real knowledge. Till that state has not been attained, material desires will be there. Desire for fame, desire to be the center of attraction, desire for wealth, desire for women, desire for followers, desire I. Those desire will be there. The Lord will sanction, and the chain of action reaction begins, and there comes the happiness and suffering. But when we become completely self-realized, and instead of personal desire, when we are doing everything not for any personal desire, keeping ourselves in the center, but when everything is done keeping Krishna in the center, keeping our original relationship. That's why it is said all the problem arises because of lack of sambandha gyan. Sambandha gyan means who am I, and why I am doing whatever I am doing. When that sambandha gyan is lost, everything is on a material platform. and the action reaction cycle keeps on continuing. The only hope is bhakti yoga to eventually bring us to complete self-realization, but it's a slow process. Okay, that's the end of the third session. Fourth session. Any question up to this point? Was it clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward, the characteristic of a liberated soul. So first, basically, after now this, as I said, these are all connected verses. Um, the three doers, living entity, because of misuse of free will, which is because of ignorance, action and reaction cycle begins, and everything comes now. The living entity goes through all the troubles. God is not responsible. So the root cause is ignorance. How the ignorance can be removed by knowledge. How the knowledge can come, just like the sun removed darkness, the knowledge remove ignorance, and all this action reaction cycle stops. So how the knowledge is attained? By complete absorption in Krishna consciousness, complete Krishna consciousness. And one who has attained complete Krishna consciousness, who is in complete knowledge, how does he behave? This is the section. Characteristic of liberated soul, who has no such subtle form of conditioning, no false ego, no, completely connected in Sambandha Gyan with Krishna. What happens? That is described here. So vision of a self-realized soul. This is, we know, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Kavi Hastani Sunicheva Subhakecha Pandita Samadarshana. Equal vision to all living entities. A dog eater, cow, living entity, because he sees Krishna in the heart of all living entity. So he becomes Samadarshana. We cannot be Samadarshana because we like somebody, we don't like somebody. We have friends, we have enemies. Samadarshana is a very advanced platform. We distinguish. We are in dualities. Samadarshana is like, Samadarshana. It's a liberated platform actually, Pandita Samadarshana. Equal vision to all living entities. Then no attraction, aversion to matter. Repulsion is another form of attraction. Wherever there is attraction, repulsion will also be there. So he is neutral. No repulsion, attraction to matter. No rejoicing, lamenting for material events. Something good happens, rejoicing. Not so good happens, lamentation. No such thing for any material events. Samadarshana. Intelligence fixed in self, remain Krishna conscious, and one knows the signs of God. Intelligence fixed in self means he remains, this is many times comes, fixed in self means one is self-realized, one is fully Krishna conscious, one knows the signs of God, never attracted to sense gratification, because this is very important verse, which is Ehi samspasha chaboga dukkha yunana evate. It comes here in the characteristic of a liberated soul. Adi antavanta kontaya nate shuramate buddha, which says the contact of the senses with the sense object produces misery and continual material existence. So intelligent person does not engage in bringing the senses and sense objects together. And then it says Adi Antavanta Kontaya, it has a beginning, and Anta, it has an end. Material happiness is temporary and limited. He understands that. That's why a self-realized soul is not attracted to sense gratification. He enjoys unlimited happiness by concentrating on the Supreme. So this is the characteristics, some of the verses that describe about what happens when one is one attain the real knowledge. Ignorance is root cause of suffering. When real knowledge comes, that comes by pure devotional service. And when knowledge comes, these things happens. No attraction, aversion, lamentation, rejoicing, samadarshana, not never attracted to sense gratification. And Prabhupada quotes Yamunacharya. He says, when I spit at the thought of sex life. Haridas Thakur Prabhupada quotes. So, I mean, these are all liberated platform, but at the same time, we are discussing these are characteristic of liberated soul who are not in ignorance at all, never attracted to sense gratification. Then internal, external activities are something more about self-realized soul is tolerate the forces of desire and anger and the urges of senses till death. So there Prabhupada says, even a self-realized soul, the senses may still demand a self-realized soul, but still he tolerates the urges of the senses. The tongue controlling is one thing, not having desire is one thing, but the tongue may want to taste. So there Prabhupada explains in the purport, the urges of the senses is urge to speak, the urge of anger, mind, tongue, stomach or belly and genitals. This is first verse of Nectar of Instruction. One who can tolerate the urge of anger, the urge of mind, demands of the mind, then the urge of tongue, belly and genitals, they are interconnected. And the urge of the speech, he can accept disciples all over the world. Nectar of Instruction, first verse. So one should, this self-realized soul, he tolerates the six urges and the forces of desire and anger. Because desire is there. The desire is like a strong force. I want it. And if we don't tolerate our desire, if we desire and we don't get it, anger will come. Then one has to tolerate the urge of the anger. But if we ourselves tolerate it, not that we want it and we are not getting it, then anger will come. But if we ourselves use our intelligence to say no to a particular desire, that is very good. That is wanted. That is checking the force of the desire, checking the force of the anger, checking the force. This is very, very difficult because one may not show anger outside, internally it's there. One may not show desire outside, internally it's there. And all these senses. So checking the force and not acting on them. That is like checking the force. This is the internal behavior. He checks them. And why to tolerate? To make steady progress on spiritual path and achieve transcendental bliss. How he tolerates? He fixes meditation on Krishna. These desires may be there, but then he is fixed on Krishna. Purifies his external activities by working for the benefit of others. This is selfless service. Like either it is giving Krishna, giving prasadam, or serving in a temple. These are various ways where one purifies one's external activities by working for the benefit of others. And by focusing his happiness, activities, and goal inward, or he find great happiness. Krishna says in 24th verse, he find great happiness internally by fixing his meditation on the Lord. And he is selfless and he is working for the sake of others' benefit. And when he is doing these three things, then one can check the force of personal desire, anger, and urges of the senses. So these are external behavior is he is serving others. Internal behavior, he checked these anger and he focus on the Lord and he derives great inner happiness. Okay, then maybe 5 more minutes. Last 3 verses of the chapter. There are 29 verses. 27, 28 gives a preview to Ashtanga Yoga. Krishna has now finished his discussion of how to gain liberation by working in complete knowledge of the super soul. In other words, there are 2 paths Krishna explains. One is through Bhakti Yoga, which is there is ignorance, You need knowledge. Knowledge is given by pure bhakti yoga, and one who faith, mind, intelligence, everything fixed on the Lord. And that person gains full knowledge, and having full knowledge, these are the characteristics of a liberated soul. And he checks the forces of anger, desire, and tolerate his senses. These are the characteristics. And he concentrates on the Supreme. So this is one way. Krishna has now finished his discussion here. In the next two verses, he explained how to achieve the same liberated condition through Ashtanga Yoga. One way is this. Another way is you do Ashtanga Yoga. And here Krishna gives a glimpse, and next chapter he explains that in detail. Ashtanga Yoga helps by eightfold means in following ways: becoming free from all fear, desire, and anger. Like Krishna says, one should become free from or check the forces of desire, anger. And Krishna says, by practicing Ashtanga Yoga, you can do that. If one asks how, then that's where the link, it goes to the next chapter. Through this way, you can do that. Control the senses, mind, and intelligence. Feel the presence of super soul in transcendent situation. So these things can be attained through the process of Ashtanga Yoga, or through mind, intelligence fixed on the Lord, or directly Bhakti Yoga. So this gives a purview to the next chapter. And the last is how to attain peace on the platform of liberation. Real peace is obtained by bringing Krishna in the center, which is very difficult. Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. People fight over things they want to enjoy, but a wise person knows that Krishna is the only real enjoyer. People fight over things they want to enjoy, but a wise person knows that Krishna. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, can you give me 5 minutes? Okay. People fight over things they want to enjoy, but a wise person knows that Krishna is the only real enjoyer. That is Bhoktaram. Krishna is the enjoyer. So I should not fight for myself becoming happy, myself becoming the center. I should not, I should try to see how Krishna is best served and how Krishna is the enjoyer. When I will keep myself in the center, then ego will be hurt, mind will get disturbed, intelligence will lose its discrimination power, the senses will become wild, everything will go haywire when I keep myself in the center. But when I see that how Krishna is pleased, how Krishna is in the center, how everyone is trying to serve Krishna, then I will derive great bliss from everyone's activities. Envy will go away, anger will go away. Why? Krishna is in the center. So this is a peace formula, very important. Bhoktaram yagatapasam. Krishna's Prabhupada says, Krishna is the only Bhokta. When we realize one cannot go to Golok Vrindavan, one cannot go to spiritual world unless he realizes Krishna is the only Bhokta. The moment we try to become the center, all the problem arises. The living entity is under illusion in trying to lord over material nature, but is dominated by the material energy. So living entity is under the illusion. The living entity is trying to lord over material nature, mode of passion, competition. Competition means mode of passion. I'll prove I am better than others, or I'll compare with others. Then ignorance is like, I don't care about the word only. And goodness is like sense of happiness with the, peaceful, and stay away from all these troubles and all these problems. I don't want to get into all these things. And, why to preach? There is so much anxiety in that, so many troubles, nobody listens anyway. So, I'm happy with my own thing. So one only tries to be in mode of goodness and tries to be aloof and tries to be happy. So when one stops thinking about oneself, my happiness, I'm competing with others, or in mode of ignorance. When the living entity is under illusion, the living entity is under illusion in trying to lord over material nature, but is dominated by material energy. And the moment we try, Maya is not going to leave us. The only way we can come out of it is when we see Krishna is the Bhokta, Krishna is the enjoyer. And I am meant to give Krishna enjoyment. But it is very, very difficult to keep Krishna in the center. And that's why this is a peace formula. I mean, if you want unadulterated peace, Krishna says, Gyatamam Shanti Rachati. He will be peaceful and he will be happy. When the more one becomes selfless, like many times people don't want to do some service because they feel like my japa will be affected. My will be affected. My will be affected in this and this and this. When we actually, like, no anxiety vibe, peacefully chant, hear, aloof. But then more important than that is, I mean, how much trouble Prabhupada take to follow the instruction of his Guru Maharaj. And how difficult was it for Prabhupada to deal with the Western world actually. How much tolerance was required, how much, infinite. Whether it is, they tried to kill him, he didn't have a place to stay. And Prabhupada says, I was very peaceful sitting in Vrindavan. Very nice. But then it's again my comfort. And Prabhupada says, for me, Vrindavan was sense gratification. It's a very deep statement. For me, living in Vrindavan was sense gratification. So I can do what I want to do in my spiritual life. Again, who is the bhokta there? I am the bhokta. So when Krishna becomes the center, then Prabhupada says one should take anxiety for Krishna. Taking anxiety for Krishna will take us back to Godhead. Then we can become peaceful. Then Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. People fight to control land. But Krishna is the only true owner of all properties and the common ruler of all rulers. People try to rule. I want to be the ruler here. But when everything belongs to Krishna, when Krishna is the true ruler, Krishna is the true owner, Krishna is the center, great, peaceful. I am the center, then anxiety. Desire, subtle form of conditioning, which is desire, is the cause of our misery. Desire is because of ignorance or lack of pure devotional service. I'm talking about myself. Everything is because of me only. And Krishna very simply says, I am everything. Everything belongs to me. Land, common ruler of all rulers. I am the enjoyer. And the last is Suhridam Sarva Bhutana. A Krishna conscious person does not divide enemies from friends because he knows that Krishna is a friend of all living entity. No enemies. Does not distinguish enemies from friends. Krishna does not distinguish. Why? He's also my part and parcel. He's also my part and parcel. He's also my part and parcel. They all want to come to me only. They all can be happy with me only. And when we apply this principle of Suhritam Sarva Bhutanam, this devotee can be happy only with Krishna. This devotee can be happy only with Krishna. When we take ourselves out of the center and our focus is how to connect this person closer to Krishna, then all the problem of that person will be solved. How to connect that person closer to Krishna, how to take that person closer to Krishna. When we also think from the perspective that Krishna is a friend of all living entity, Krishna loves all living entities equally, we become peaceful also. When I'm in the center, then there is Bhed Bhav and there is problems. Okay, so that's the end of the 5th chapter. Are there any discussion at this point of time? Any discussion?
Prabhuji, thank you very much for the discussion. It was amazing. I learned so much from you, Prabhuji.
Well, thank you for joining and thank you for encouragement.
Yeah, sorry, Prabhuji, we were a little bit late today. We had a Krishna conscience program and we had a great time with Yoga Kishore Prabhu.
Oh, all excellent, amazing. Very happy to hear that. Okay, anything else or can we end here? All right, Prabhuji's Mataji's, thank you all so much for joining. Vancha kalpa tarubhesha kripa sindhubhe evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji's and Mataji's. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
Prabhuji,
Prabhu.
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Dandavat
Prabhuji.
pranam, Prabhuji.
Pranam.